Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt, I am the American-Canadian Gamer, and welcome back to my Halo 5 wishlist. Today we're going to be talking about something that's a bit more controversial in Halo 4. Loadouts. Now, loadouts were somewhat introduced in Halo Reach, but they were fully fleshed out in Halo 4. They allowed players to select a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, their grenade type, armor ability, and a couple of perks. And while I believe that there are a lot of problems with the current loadout system, I don't think that loadout should be removed, just refined a little bit. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say that this is going to just go over the general concept of the loadout system. I will go more in-depth with each individual aspect, like weapons and armor abilities, in their own episodes in the future. So with that out of the way, let's start off with why I think loadouts should stay in Halo 5. Now, first of all, I think that giving players the ability to play the game they want is very valuable to the overall enjoyment of the game. Allowing someone to use weapons and equipment they feel more comfortable with makes them feel more comfortable and more in control of the situation at hand. Secondly, I think having loadouts allows players to adapt to a changing battlefield, and while it doesn't have a big effect on standard Slayer variants, being able to switch between different weapons and armor abilities to fulfill different roles lets players defend and push objectives with much greater efficiency. It also allows coordinated teams to, well, coordinate much better, assigning different members of their team to have a specific role, and then having them use a particular loadout to complement that role. That being said, loadouts in Halo need some refinement, mainly in the elements that make up the loadouts, not so much the system itself. First of all, I want to talk about armor mods. These were probably the most controversial addition to the game. Most of the community saw this as Halo trying to be Call of Duty, and it's pretty hard not to blame the community for thinking that. And while I do think armor mods do have their place, I don't like a lot of them. Now, the mods that I mainly disagree with are the ones that directly affect the performance of weapons. This would be dexterity, stability, and explosives. Weapons, particularly grenades, are expected to perform a certain way. Halo's core gameplay revolves around a trinity of guns, grenades, and melee, and I think messing with any part of that and making it inconsistent negatively impacts the overall experience. Grenades are expected to deal a particular amount of damage based on proximity, but explosives makes this unpredictable. Weapons have reload times that are designed to help balance them. Rocket launchers are supposed to reload much slower than assault rifles, but dexterity cuts reload times in half, so when you notice that your opponent has fired 2 rockets and you decide that you can move in and take them out, they may reload almost instantly and kill you, and there's no way you could have foreseen that happening. And as for stability, one of the main methods of countering a sniper is to put fire on them to disrupt their aim. But with stability, they can just line up their shot anyways, and you have no way of knowing if they have that particular mod or not until they put a bullet through your head. I understand that the whole idea of a mod or a perk is to allow players to specialize into particular roles and playstyles, and I support that ideology, but messing with the core fundamentals of a game makes it unpredictable and makes players feel out of control, which is not a good thing. It leads to player frustration and reduces the enjoyment of the game. Therefore, I think it would be best that any mod that directly affects the performance of a weapon in-game should be removed. However, I do think the concept of armor mods has its place in multiplayer, but they should be used to help players specialize their playstyle or loadouts, not make them outright more powerful. Great examples of this concept would be the mods ammo and firepower. They help you, but they don't make you more powerful. So we'll stop with mods here, and I'll go into them in greater detail in another episode. So let's move on to armor abilities. If they keep anything from Halo 4, I want it to be armor abilities. The FPS genre is getting more and more homogenized each year, and these special abilities help set Halo apart from the rest of the pack. I think they are great for both single player and multiplayer, and there is a wide range of things that you can do with them. But what I really want 343 to do is to separate armor abilities from loadouts. And let me explain what I mean. I think you might like this. It would be somewhat of a combination of what we have in Halo 4 and what we had in Halo Reach. Now in Reach, you selected a loadout which was basically just selecting your armor ability before you spawned. In Halo 4, you selected a loadout with an armor ability that you predefined for that loadout. Now, I think they should separate these and allow you to select your loadout and armor ability individually from each other. This way, they can restrict which armor abilities appear in each game type. The more competitive playlists can be a bit more selective in their abilities, while the more casual playlists as well as custom games can have a much wider degree of options. It gives a much greater flexibility to custom games, and it allows 343 to add or remove armor abilities as they see fit without interrupting loadouts. Now, in a future episode, once again, I will go into details about what armor abilities I want to see added to the game, but as for now, I think having players select their armor ability and loadout separately from one another opens up a wide range of possibilities for balance and experimentation. Okay, now let's talk about weapons. This is the part of Halo 4's loadout system that let me down the most. The options available felt very limited to me. And while I'm willing to give 343 the benefit of the doubt that they may have been limited by the capabilities of the Xbox 360, the Xbox One is a much more powerful console with more memory available, and it has Blu-ray discs, so I hope they really expand on the options available to players. Now, I was mostly sad to see a lack of weapons from previous games like the SMG, plasma rifle, spiker, and spike grenades. Halo has one of the most unique arsenals in all of gaming, and it's a shame that they didn't capitalize on that fact. Now, some weapons will need to be rebalanced, but I want them to attempt to add every possible loadout weapon, and after seeing what they did with the title update, I have faith that they would be able to balance the weapons fairly well. However, I do think that the bolt shot and plasma pistol need to be removed from loadouts. There is no justifiable reason for players to be able to spawn with a weapon that can kill in one shot, regardless of the limitations associated with it. If they want to keep the bolt shot as a loadout weapon, then it will need some serious rebalancing. It should not be able to kill in one hit. And as for the plasma pistol, it would be better if it was removed from loadouts, and not only for the sake of big team battle, but for the sake of the weapon itself. Being able to carry the plasma pistol into combat made vehicles nearly useless, since it's almost guaranteed that every player in a big team battle match will have a plasma pistol. And because you could spawn with a plasma pistol, it was nerfed to the point where it was almost useless in normal Slayer matches, because they didn't want people running around just using the plasma pistol BR combo every chance they got. You can still do that, but it's much harder, and it's generally better just to have a bolt shot with you. Its lock-on was reduced, and it uses much more ammunition than before. If they remove the weapon from loadouts, it will not only help out big team battle, but 343 could also buff the plasma pistol so that it would be a weapon worth fighting over and controlling. Taking the plasma pistol out of loadouts is better for both the weapon itself and vehicular combat. Now, I think they handled primary weapons much better, with close range, mid-range, and long-range options, but I think there is still room to expand. I think they could rebalance some of the weapons a bit more, add some weapons from past games, and I think they should start adding weapons from the lore, like the M6 carbine, which is a carbine variant of the Magnum, and there's also a carbine variant of the assault rifle that could be added. But once again, I'll talk about that in its own video. But let me know what you think about loadouts in the comments section below. I think that they have a lot of value that should not be ignored, but they just weren't executed very well in Halo 4. I think they're a great idea that's just had poor execution. And if you liked this video, be sure to stick around because I have a lot more to talk about in the future. So, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt, and I'll see you next time.